Hi everyone, welcome back to another episode on Monday Positivity. Today's guest is someone whose story deeply moved me and whose presence left me feeling both empowered and soothed, and it also gave me a lot to think about. Today I'm joined by Gulara Vincent, a relationship and trauma healing coach, best-selling author and former university law lecturer who made the bold leap from academia into the world of emotional healing. Gulara now runs a thriving healing business in the UK where she helps other healers and therapists release money blocks, step into their true voice, and feel good enough to market their gifts to the world. She is the author of two powerful memoirs, Hammer, Sickle, and Broom, and another one is Fragile Freedom, and her work is rooted in ancestral healing, inner child work, and deep emotional transformation. One of the most accessible and beautiful spaces she has created is the Healing Room, a gentle but potent container that offers monthly tapping sessions, support for emotional eating, and 5 week immersive courses. She's also the creator of the Good Enough course, which is powerful invitation for anyone struggling with self-worth and the belief that they're not quite there yet. This conversation was such a gift. I personally took away so many insights from healing ancestral wounds to reparenting the inner child to the importance of feeling safe enough to speak up and claim your space as a healer or creator. Gulara's way of blending wisdom with vulnerability, structure with softness is rare. And I know you're going to take away so much from this episode too. So settle in, take a deep breath, and let's dive into this beautiful conversation. Okay. So I'm excited, to have you on the podcast. And before we start with our question answers, let's uh, tell our listeners and viewers a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I am Gulara Vincent. I specialize in healing intergenerational trauma. It means helping my clients to go right to the root of any problems they may have. For example, money blocks or not feeling good enough, whether it's in a relationship or in their career, helping them to get unstuck. I'm an author of two internationally best-selling memoirs, Hammer, Sickle, and Broom, and Fragile Freedom, and I'm delighted to be here.
Awesome. And I'm actually curious because you said that you were a university law lecturer first, and then you
Yes,
transitioned uh, from being a lecturer to a trauma healing coach, right? So, how
that's
did that transformation happen? What was the reason?
so. I was in academia. I just got my first permanent lectureship in law at the University of Birmingham, and I was very excited about this opportunity. So, 2 months into my new job, I was marking essays, and it was evening, like 7 p.m. in the evening. I was still working at the university, and suddenly I kind of got this really clear message. There was no booming voice, but there was very clear message in me that I'm here to teach and I'm here to write, but law is not the right content. And I thought, what on earth can I do? I have been teaching law for a number of years by then, and just by chance, the circumstances of my life led me to start writing my story. And as I was writing the story, all the trauma started coming up, and I was doing an enormous amount of trauma healing for myself. And through experiencing the shifts and miracles in my life, through healing myself, I came to the point where I wanted to help other people too. And so I trained in a number of different techniques and modalities, and now I combine them and teach other healers as well how to support their clients in the most efficient and profound ways.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So going back to the transition, it took me a while. So it was a number of years before I came to the point where I could let go of academia. It was back in December 2020. I finally left and fully dedicated myself to the healing practices, and I haven't looked back once. Although I loved my academic job,
Mhm.
healing is my calling in life.
Yeah, so that actually leads me to my next question, because when I also left my permanent job and started freelancing, because I wasn't uh like it was I wasn't feeling anything like in my 9 to 5. It was just like for salary I'm working. You start feeling insecure also, because you're
Yes,
leaving something secure and following your calling. Or did
yes.
you face the same challenge, and how did you overcome that?
I felt very insecure. I felt insecure in my job before I left as well because I had two children. I decided to take long maternity leaves to dedicate myself to spending time with them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, towards the end of leaving academia, it just felt so uncomfortable because I wasn't in alignment. I just wanted to go and do my healing stuff over the weekends or
Yeah.
evenings, whatever I could fit them in. And being in academia just was getting increasingly uncomfortable because I wasn't performing at the level before I had the kids when I was working weekends and holidays and you name it. And
Mm-hmm.
so the demands of the profession were as such that you had to choose between family and work, and I was not willing to make the choice in favor of academia. So it felt very, very uncomfortable. But the fear of leaving that security blanket and jumping the boat was paralyzing. It took me from that message when I got that, yes, you are here to write and teach, but not law, to
Yeah.
the moment when I jumped the boat, it took me 9 years. And it needed that time. I needed that security blanket. I needed the money that was coming from academia to do all the healing that I needed for myself. But
Mm-hmm.
then once I left, I could really fly in my healing job.
Right. And I think, like you said, if you're not feeling in alignment, you will always have that rush. Like you said, that, you are waiting for the weekends to do the work, self work.
Yes.
I can relate. And
Yeah.
now let's talk about. I had a question, like very interesting one actually, after reading, going through your website. Yes. You said that you help mentors and healers release money blocks and step
Mm.
into their voice. So,
Yes.
what are the most common inner blocks you have seen most clients come up with?
I think not feeling worthy or deserving good things. It's like it's so deeply ingrained that we have to work hard for our money, that we are not allowed to outgrow our loved ones. And that's deeply subconscious. It's not
Mhm.
we're choosing to stay small, but something in us says, well, if I outgrow my family and my loved ones, then I won't be accepted, I won't belong. And so somewhere unconsciously we're holding ourselves back. There are a range of blocks and why they appear, but there's mostly they're mostly very universal because as humans, we
Yeah.
all have very similar problems. But the one I see the most is about not deserving, this
Mhm.
imposter syndrome, feeling ashamed, fearing judgments, and so on. But they are mostly rooted in our childhood. So they have nothing to do with the present day reality. They
Mhm.
go right back to sometimes even back to the womb, because say if your mother wasn't ready to have you, and that
Yeah.
first initial response that goes into, oh no, when she finds out that she's pregnant with you, can get deeply imprinted into our subconscious mind. We won't consciously know this is why we feel rejected at work, in our relationships, or with friendships,
Mhm.
but it imprints and then impacts the rest of our lives. And so helping my clients to go and heal that at the root allows them to move forward with more ease.
Mhm. And speaking of imprints, is it like
Mhm.
only the mothers mother's thoughts, or is it like, what your father was also thinking?
Yeah,
Or, right? It's, I think, intergenerational thing. We'll talk about that also,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely. That fathers, obviously, a lot of this information is encoded in our DNA.
Mm-hmm.
Scientists suggest that our DNA contains up to 7 generations of ancestral information. And
Yeah.
that includes maternal and paternal sides. It includes all the wars and famine and hardship our ancestors lived through. And so there is some sort of subconscious information that's coded in our DNA. So
Mm-hmm.
when we do healing, absolutely addressing both maternal and paternal side. In family constellations, mother symbolizes life. So
Mm-hmm.
if we are not accepting our mother, and it doesn't mean that we have to love them, or like sometimes there are really difficult narcissistic relationships, for example, or something toxic that happened that we're unable to necessarily love the mother, but we have to accept her as she is so that we can accept our life. Whereas father symbolizes the direction of life. So if there are any difficulties with father, we'll be feeling lost on our path. It will be very hard to feel like we're living our purpose. So there are various aspects that come from both
Mm-hmm.
sides of the lineage.
Okay. Okay, I'll actually look more into it because this is, something I think everybody should look into,
Yeah, absolutely.
and tell us about the healing room also.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Healing Room is an opportunity to experience some of my work. We have a monthly tapping sessions. So it's a EFT, which rewires your nervous system. It helps you to let go of limiting beliefs. It's very embodied, so we tap on specific points, and those points are acupuncture points, where usually acupuncture is stick needles, but instead we stimulate them by tapping on those points and as well as acknowledging certain things that hold us back so that we can release it from our body, from our system. I also offer 5-week courses within that container. So they usually happen live every 6 months. So at the moment, I'm teaching Good Enough course, and the recordings are in the portal for those who might join at a later date. And then in November, I'll be teaching my Unlock Unlimited Love and Money course, where I use my intergenerational trauma healing method, going back to the womb, going back to the ancestors, going back to the parental energies that hold you back around love and money. And there are also recordings of my past classes where I use ancestral healing, where we look at various themes like fear of judgment or attachment or addiction to struggle and suffering, because that's all we've known. And then it kind of becomes our normal, fear of expansion, and so much more.
Okay. And can you also, only if you feel comfortable talking about, because usually I ask this question to all my guests, and they
Sure.
give different examples of their clients.
Yeah.
So without revealing the names, can you
Yes.
talk about a specific client that you worked with? And if you want to talk about, the kind of ancestral patterns that came up during the session, what were they struggling with, and how, how did the process go?
Sure. So many examples. I'll try to think of someone so that I can. So a lot of okay,
Yeah.
just a moment so that I can choose an example that would resonate with the audience. So I had a client who was really struggling with bringing her business forward. So she was a healer and an entrepreneur, but she felt like whatever she did, it just nothing was working out. And she would not only have setbacks at work, but also there will be energy drain. So every time she would make an effort, it's like something would pull a plug on her energy, and she'll be exhausted and drained and unable to move forward. And so we did some work with her around her conception story, where she felt rejected by her family, because she wasn't planned, she wasn't wanted, and that then was impacting her ability to show up because every time she put something out, people didn't respond. She felt like she wasn't wanted. She took it
Mm-hmm.
personally, and the original wound kept getting re-triggered, and then she felt collapsed and exhausted and didn't have energy to move forward. And so when we healed that imprint, she was able to start putting things out and increasing her income and ability to show up with more confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just one example, fairly common in my world where lots of healers struggle to market themselves or
Yeah.
show up consistently.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's also funny, like how, the like the personal life, what we have gone through as like children, it
Yes,
impacts or, shows up in other areas of life also. And you mentioned that you,
absolutely, absolutely. And this fear of criticism.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, go on.
And you mentioned that you work with the inner child also,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
why do you think it is important to connect with our inner child or to have, either business success or even success in relationships?
Most of our imprints happen before the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever you are living today often is a result of whatever happened up to the age of 7. It's like we're like a sponge at the time. We don't even necessarily consciously learn, but we can absorb everything we see around us. We take things on board, we make conclusions, we decide that if we act like this, then we will get this kind of treatment. And so when we show up in our business and we want to do our best with our
Mm-hmm.
services, for example, some of that childhood pain can get re-triggered. For example, you might be scared. I was just about to go back to that client who was terrified of criticism. Her dad
Mm-hmm.
was incredibly critical. And so whatever she did was never good enough. And so some of those stories are likely to come forward. And it doesn't have to be a traumatic thing. Trauma doesn't need to be traumatic. Sometimes being at school and not being ready to recite a poem or whatever your teacher may ask you to do, and
Mm-hmm.
standing in front of the classroom feeling humiliated and feeling mortified that somehow you are failing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can come back. You may not consciously remember or put two together, but if you are scared to step forward and present something to a room full of people, there might be some echo from the past, and therefore it's essential to heal those fears at their root, which may nothing to do with your present day reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I loved, when you said that trauma doesn't have to be traumatic because usually we feel
Yes.
like, it has to be something big.
No, absolutely not. Mm. It can be
Okay.
the smallest thing, the way the person looked at you, or what they said, or how they reacted. So it's not about the event itself, but how
Mhm.
it lands in you.
Yeah.
That's what matters.
Right. Okay. And what signs should someone look for if they feel or they suspect that, they are carrying unhealed ancestral wounds or even, childhood wounds?
Yes. Usually you'll feel quite stuck and frustrated because
Mhm.
you can do this. You know that you've got what it takes. And yet there is something that holds you back. And increasingly it can become really frustrating that you just can't make that leap. And then you might be telling yourself off and thinking, what's wrong with me? Here we go again. I do this thing I always do. Another um, another sign is where there are recurring patterns, right?
Mhm.
Where you have different people but similar relationships or similar outcome to your relationships.
Yeah.
That can be a very telltale sign. But also, for example, if in your family your parents divorced and
Mhm.
then you are suddenly experiencing similar flavor of divorce in your life. It might be that you are living your parents' life in a sense. And this as children we do from love, right? We
Mhm.
arrive to our family. We feel like there is some unfinished business. There's some sort of something in the air. They are not talking about it, they are not dealing with it, but it's there. And so then we want to help. But how can you resolve it without experiencing it yourself? So
Yeah.
chances are you're going to absorb that energy and play it out in your own life in order
Mhm.
to find some sort of resolution. Except most of the time, we don't have means and resources to look at that and understand where this is coming from. So then we just pass it on, pass it on. I had a client recently whose mother divorced when her mother was 38, and then she went on and studied and rebuilt her life. And this woman is just had her divorce at the age of 38 and
Mhm.
applying to study. And she was just amazed. She was saying, it's as if I'm living my mom's life. And I was saying, yes. Sadly, it's often like that.
Yeah. Okay. It's, it's a bit scary also because if we are not aware of these things, we can just, go on with
Sure.
it throughout our lives.
Yes,
And tell us,
exactly. You don't necessarily think about your parents when you are going through something, right?
right, yeah. And tell us something about your memoirs also.
Mhm.
What
So
inspired
my
you?
first,
Yeah. I know we are,
yeah,
I think, out of sync. I mean, internet is, weird these days.
sure. I started writing my first memoir after having life-changing experience. So my parents divorced when I was only 3 weeks old, and I've never met my dad. And I tried to heal it. I've been in therapy, all that, and it just wouldn't heal that wound. So I thought, I'm going to go find his grave and find some closure to the situation. I went to my hometown in Azerbaijan and I couldn't find his grave. But as I was leaving, I went to buy my ticket to come back. And as I was coming back from the ticket office, I suddenly remembered the story my mom told that I have an aunt. Her name is Tahira, and she lives in the town center.
Hmm.
And on impulse, I went knocking on the doors. And eventually, I found this door. Some 40 minutes later, this woman came out and she said, "Oh, you look so familiar, but I can't place you." And I said, "Well, I'm your
Mm-hmm.
brother's daughter, and I just want a photo. I didn't even have his photo, and I want to visit his grave." So she takes me in to her house, and there are like 40 of my relatives. It was her 58th birthday. I just walked into her birthday party, and there
Mm-hmm.
was so much love. And like it turned my world upside down because the stories I was told as a child didn't match the reality. And so I came back and I started writing about that experience. And then from there, I just couldn't stop. I just wanted to make sense of my life. And so I wrote the first book, Hammer, Sickle, and Broom. It's about my childhood story, and it's
Mm-hmm.
set against the backdrop of the Soviet Union's collapse. So there is a historic component woven with my personal story. And then the second book, Fragile Freedom, it was a really tough book to write because there is a lot of trauma there, including sexual trauma. But it was like my soul wanted me to do this because it was such an act of liberation. It felt like this is not just for me. There are so many women who suffer in silence, and I was one of them, and I was no longer willing to stay quiet.
Okay. And also, have you received any surprising or like, any moving feedback from your readers? Readers of,
Yes,
your book Fragile Freedom or even the other one?
absolutely. There were lots of amazing letters that I received, especially after Fragile Freedom, because there were women writing to me and saying, I had no idea that that event in my life had
Mhm.
such a profound effect on the rest of my life. I never even put two together. I suppressed that memory. I just pushed aside. I just decided to move over it, and this was the result. This was other traumas that occurred as a result of not attending to that original wound. It
Mhm.
was very, very moving, very touching, very personal experiences that people shared with me. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's been life-changing for some people
Yeah.
and for me.
Yeah. Okay. And if someone, listening to this podcast or even watching us on YouTube is feeling stuck in their life, what will be the one small step that you would suggest?
I'd say come to your body because that stuckness you're feeling in your mind,
Mm-hmm.
that frustration, it's all in the body. And all the memories, all the traumas that you have experienced, they don't just live in your head, they are also in your body. And so the more you can come into your body and move that energy, because it's just energy, it's stuck, it can't move. So if you move, then it has a better chance of moving and revealing itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
find that works for you, whether it's dancing to your favorite track or going for a run or punching a bag or whatever it is, just get that, start moving that energy, and then things will start moving in your life as well.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I actually had, many questions. But now that I listen to, your story and you talk about, other things, I am having even more. Uh, is there
Great.
anything in specific that you want to share with the viewers about your work or even your services or even like, anything
Sure.
important that you think is important in your work? Yeah.
I just feel moved to say that it's never late to heal this trauma.
Mhm.
Whatever you've been carrying, some people think, oh, what's the point? There's always the point. It just makes you feel like you can trust yourself, you can trust life, you can trust your decisions, you can trust your truth, you can trust that you belong. So there's
Mhm.
so much more to this healing than just feeling a bit better, right?
Right.
It can change your life beyond recognition. So it doesn't have to be with me.
Mhm.
Um, you're very welcome in the healing room if you choose to, but find a way to attend to those old wounds, things that still make you cringe, make you feel like your toes curl, or you just feel all kind of cringy in your body. Those are things to attend to. They haven't gone away because try to not think about them or try to distract yourself from
Mhm.
those thoughts and feelings or run away in some form, addictions, food, Netflix, whatever it is that you may be using to numb down that feeling. It
Mhm.
doesn't go away, and then it shows up in some other form, whether it's illness or your body starts talking eventually. So you are important. So
Yeah.
tend to your needs and your wounds.
Right. And like speaking of, like you said, emotional eating, that also like, some it goes,
Yes,
without being noticed. Some people do that, even like, watching
absolutely.
Netflix. We don't realize and all of that. Also, if someone wants to connect with you, like how would they know that,
Mhm.
this person can help me? Like what would be what are, the subtle signs? Like some people, I feel like, they need therapy because I have studied a little bit like psychology and all, but they
Sure.
themselves they don't know that, I need therapy. So what should they
Yeah.
look for that they need to connect with you? Yes.
I have a course on emotional eating, and it's one of the most profound things I've taught because it goes so deep. It goes right back to our mother wound, that original attachment and not getting emotional nourishment that we needed. I've personally, something that I lived with for a long time because I didn't get that. And whatever I teach from experience. But I find that in terms of healing, it's like sometimes life gives us a rude awakening, you know?
Mhm.
We're like, we
Yeah.
know we should be doing it, but there isn't enough motivation until something happens that shakes up your world.
Mhm.
Well, that's obviously a bit of a rude awakening, and you will get the sign that something needs to give way.
Mhm.
There's nothing wrong in some of those things that you're doing that helps you survive, you know, watching Netflix or whatever. Like I watch Netflix. Doesn't mean there's anything wrong with watching Netflix. It's
Yeah.
more when you are using something to numb yourself down. And
Mhm.
we all have different journeys. We can't necessarily tell people when it's the right time for them. It's always the right time. If in doubt, heal yourself. You will be amazed at how much you're carrying. And
Mhm.
all that baggage and burden slows you down, makes you miserable, makes you ill. And so,
Mhm.
if you have a chance, if you have resources and opportunities, do it today. Don't wait till
Mhm.
tomorrow. Don't wait for that route. Do it today.
Okay. And lastly, also tell our listeners and viewers about your services and the process. So once they connect with you, what can they expect?
Sure.
Mm.
If you visit my website, gularavincent.co.uk, you will find all the information about the types of services I offer. If you're a healer, I teach practitioners how to support their clients using my intergenerational trauma healing method. If you're not interested in becoming a healer, then you can do healing for yourself in the healing room. I offer some one-to-one services as well, but all the information is on the website. Come on board, drop me a line that you can access my email address on the website, and um, let's find a way to support you in the way that's most appropriate for your circumstances.
Okay. And I will also put all the links to your website and socials and your email as well in the description box below this episode. So if anybody wants to, connect with you, they can easily connect. And thank you so
Absolutely.
much for making time for this episode.
Thank you, Parul.
Yeah, it was really insightful, and a lot
Thank
of
you so
my
much.
questions also got answered.
Yeah, I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much for making space for me. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And I hope to connect with you in the future as well. And as soon as the episode goes live, I'll share the links with you. Most probably, I'll upload it this weekend only, Saturday.
Great. Wonderful, Parul. I'll share the links as well on my socials.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
so
you very much
much.
for your time and energy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Take
Have a
care.
great day and good
You
luck
too.
with your podcast. I hope that
Thank you.
it goes well.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you. Bye.